Okay, it's some 31 minutes after 8. So you're still here on the AM show, and it's now time for my banner. Well, a bit disappointed because one of my guests didn't show up. But whichever way, we've got to go on. And I'm happy that my young friend who was here yesterday is joining me again this morning. In November 2014, the Electricity Company of Ghana, the ECG, cut power supply to the Kumasi Polytechnic. I'm sure I remember that issue very well. Over 652,000 debts. That's how much they said the Polytechnic owed them then. According to the power distribution company, this was part of plans to recoup millions owed mainly by public sector agencies. The issue is that a lot of tertiary institutions are being cut off. Some of them are being warned. Letters have been issued to them because they owe the Electricity Company of Ghana. And students, as you may know, because they are the center of this, they are not particularly excited about this issue. We've been trying to get some kind of explanation and the way forward to the issue. It's been tough. But what can we do? Still hammer on the issue. And that's why Idi Muhayu Dean, who is the General Secretary of the National Union of Ghana Students, is rejoining me today here on my banner. It looks like we've been partners this week. Idi, good morning to you.
Good morning. It's always humbling to be here. It's such a big platform, and I must commend your outfit for granting me this opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm very, very happy.
Idi is a politician already, don't worry.
Wow.
Okay, so what is the problem? The ECG says some of the tertiary institutions owe, and they owe so much, they have no choice. If those monies are not paid, they have to cut off power. What's your problem? Because you guys also issued a press statement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I look at that, I, as usual, would want to use this opportune moment to salute my constituents, as in the students of this very country, schooling here in Ghana and abroad. Yesterday I committed this gaffe and I was almost
Really?
I forgot to salute my constituents.
The reason you are here?
Yeah, the reason for which I got this opportunity. Else I certainly wouldn't have this. So I want to salute them and make a special mention of my SRC, University of Education, Winneba Kumasi campus. They really helped me a lot throughout my enterprises in student activism, as it were. So I want to salute all of them. Having said that, the issue you have tabled before me is one that is very dear to the heart of the National Union of Ghana students. And before I interrogate that, I would want to paint a mental picture and lay the premises upon which I would want to, for want of a better word, prosecute the matter.
You want to prosecute the matter on my banner? The matter on your
That is what we say in the typical Ghanaian political parlance. Prosecute the matter, as it were.
And I told you he's a politician already.
Wow. Well, actually, you would recall, or it will be recalled, that somewhere last year or two, the finance minister dropped hints when he appeared before Parliament to deliver the budget, to present the budget. It dropped hint to the effect that as part of government's austerity measures to cut down costs, government was considering the possibility of weaning off some government-subvented institutions from subsidies and all of that, just so that we are able to realize enough revenue to cater for other developmental challenges confronting the nation. So ever since that hint was dropped by the finance minister, he actually proceeded to mention some of the institutions, some of the ministries, departments and agencies. But of course, as a student leader, I have a lot of personal biases towards, if you like, the concerns of Ghanaian students, and rightly so, because I am a student leader. So what struck us, or me at the time, had to do with the mention of public tertiary institutions as some of the institutions that will be weighing off government subventions, and this we didn't take kindly to it at all. So the National Union of Ghana Students, let me also be quick to add that last year I was part of the NUCS executives. I was then the editorial board secretary, or if you like by extension the editor. my outfits, we worked on a number of releases, and then the then news executives engaged various stakeholders on this very matter. And then, in fact, we got a lot of public sympathies. A lot of people really sympathize with us, because when you go through our constitution, education is supposed to be increasingly less costly, as it were. But it appears Ghana, that law, we are yet to realize
but
that.
Let me bring this home a bit. You are the University of Education, Winneba.
Yes,
but the Kumasi campus.
Yes, Kumasi campus.
So when you're paying fees, or at least you've paid the last one that you paid, how was it? Was there a breakdown? Was there provision for electricity?
Yeah, it's actually, we're actually supposed to pay that effective next semester, or next academic year, from the interaction we've had with the ECG. I actually wanted to paint the picture so that those who are oblivious of some of these facts will get to appreciate.
But I also want to get a certain picture. So your institution has met with the ECG. Is that correct?
Not my, yes, my institution. In fact, our light was actually cut off recently. It's not just Kumasi Polytechnic. A lot of institutions, University of Mines and Technology, Kumasi Polytechnic, and quite KNUSC, quite a number of institutions. And we have even interacted with Vice Chancellor's Ghana, and it appears government is bent on continuing, or I mean, the ECG is bent on.
No, so hang on, let's break this down, because you pay the fees, so you have the paperwork.
Yeah.
So there is no provision for that, except that in the next academic year, there's going to be. So what sort of explanation have they given? Because if the institutions are supposed to be paying these monies, then they have to make provision for it, at least.
Yes.
It means that they've collected some monies already. Is that it?
Not exactly. In fact, they are contemplating of surcharging students to pay, so that to cater for the electricity, if you like, costs or the bills, as it were. So the Vice Chancellor is actually going to surcharge with the students, and is hovering. The last time we checked, is hovering around 500 to 600 cedis, Ghana cedi. That's
per student.
Per student. As I'm speaking with you, the cost of tertiary education is already, it has actually skyrocketed.
No,
and very.
I get you, Edie. Are they going to charge you to offset the monies that they owe already? Is that it?
That is actually left onto them to explain. But bottom line, as far as we know, we are going to be surcharged, and as a result of government's failure to meet the assurance made to the ECG. You know, you see, the point I was trying to make earlier was that when we protested, when NUCS protested, in fact, this is the press statement NUCS issued, we protested vehemently and sent a signal that the students of Ghana would unleash our venomous invectives on the street to make the government...
These are big words you're using. What does it mean? It's too early.
Essentially, we think that over the years, successive governments have taken the plight of Ghanaian students for granted. And then we thought it wise that it's about time we stood up and fought for what is legitimately ours. Because increasingly, our plight, anytime we raise a concern, hardly do we hear officialdom treat that with the alacrity and seriousness that it deserves.
Can I tell you something? Some people, because I was talking to a few friends yesterday on this issue and about students groups today. It's interesting, yesterday we talked about party politics in tertiary institutions, but some people think you guys are toothless now. I mean, nobody listens to you. You're so weak. You're a bunch of young people who don't have any focus. Why would anybody listen to you and actually even solve your problems?
Wow, let them try us this time around. We have resolved. Of course, we have always believed in constructive engagement. It's not always the case that, as it were, militarism, if there's any word like that, helps. Sometimes you engage constructively. We have resolved to engage constructively. But it appears our approach has not been yielding the dividends that...
I have this press statement, this one issued by the Student Representative Council of the University of Mines and Technology, and this one dated January 10, 2015, on the same issue. Apparently, they've sent a copy of this to the presidency, waiting for a response, and it still has to do with the fact that ECG is threatening you know, to cut off electricity to some of the schools, some of the public institutions, because they owe them. And I'm thinking, this may come to pass, nobody will pay attention to you again.
I'm telling you, we are willing and ready to fight this to the latter, because NUCs would not sit down, or the students of this country will not sit aloof and watch this injustice slapped on us. We are ready and willing to go the extra mile to make sure that we fight this. In fact, when we sent the signal earlier, government then organized a press conference, which was addressed by the then Minister for Education. In fact, she's still the Minister of Education, that government had rescinded the earlier decision to wane off public tertiary institutions, and that we should be free. We are not going to be surcharged, or we are not going to pay for our own electricity bills. That was the press. It was actually one of the usual Meet the Press series. And the news then issued a statement and commended government that indeed they have listened to our cry, because we had sent a signal, a very loud one for that matter, that we're willing to hit the street, we're willing to go the extra mile and fight this, because we're not going to accept the situation where government would allow us, or would sit down and allow students of this country to pay for electricity bills.
If you think it was loud enough, why is it back? It
was loud enough to the extent that the government had to make a U-turn. And the minister then addressed the press and told us that, yes, Ghana, government was not going to continue with that policy. And NUCs issued a statement and praised government. So we are taken aback. Frankly speaking, I'm still yet to come to terms that we are actually going to be made to pay, because it is quite irreconcilable with the posture government took through the ministry.
Let's talk about the meeting again. So you have been in a meeting with the heads of your institution and the ECG, correct?
Yes, yes.
How long ago?
Just recently, last 2 weeks or so. Yeah, I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, let's talk about the conversation. Let's talk about the agreements, the conversation. Yeah, what was discussed?
There are two schools of thought now. There are two concerns. One from government via the Ministry of Education telling us one thing, and then the ECG, which is that government is insisting, or is actually maintaining the stance that indeed we are not going to. I mean, government would honor the financial obligation to ECG, because ECG contends that these institutions are owing humongous sums of money, and that is crippling their operations, which is actually culminating in their state of almost dying state. So they had sent signal that government ought to pay. So government indicated that they will pay. So when you go to the Ministry of Education, they will tell you that the government is still maintaining that particular posture, that indeed they have given ECG assurance.
Okay.
However,
so that's the angle of education.
At least from the Education Ministry.
Okay, let's talk about ECG.
ECG tells us that there is no such agreement. And in fact, if you wouldn't mind, just about, like I said, 3 weeks ago, we were at a program at the conference center with the ECG boss. I mean, one of their heads of one of the institutions. He was actually at the program, and I personally posed. It was organized by the Energy Ministry. It's actually a committee that was charged to look at the possibility of sale of ECG. That particular committee, the ECG rep on that committee. The committee has quite a number of stakeholders, technical minds. So the ECG rep on that committee, I personally confronted him with this issue. So when I asked, he then responded that there was no such agreement with the government, and that as far as they are concerned, they are going to pursue the institutions to make sure that they are able to retrieve every dime that is owed their outfit, because it's crippling their operations. So actually that is what ECG is telling us. And then a letter also surfaced from the Ministry of Finance. I don't know how true that is. That is purportedly coming from the Ministry of Finance to the ECG, that they would have to pursue the heads of the institutions.
Have you seen this?
Personally, I haven't seen, but I've heard ECG tells us that, I mean, there is no such agreement that, I mean, they should relax, and the government was actually going to pay. It's the assurance given by government.
So the ECG
was not reassuring enough.
The ECG wants their money from the institutions.
Yes.
And the institutions are going to Education Ministry for it, because government has said that it will pay.
And the finance ministry seems to be in oblivion regarding this matter, as in whether there is such agreement between government and then, as in the Ministry of Education and on one hand, and then ECG on the other. Okay. It appears, so the issues are quite murky. And bottom line, from where we sit, National Union of Ghana students, and for that, the students of this country, we are resolute. We are going to.
So what kind of? I'll tell you the kind of work that we have done to try and get answers to this. But what have you done? So what have you heard? I mean, apart from the meetings, apart from you going to the conference center where you had the opportunity to have a conversation with a rep from the ECG, what is government telling you?
Well, the same old story. But we're still making the engagement. We're still dialoguing. We're still dialoguing with them and engaging them. We are hoping that we would hear something positive. Because from where we sit, our position has not changed. The position taken by NUCS last year is same position. It has not changed. And that we are not going to accept this. And we are willing to do whatever it takes within the confines of the law to make sure that we don't accept this. Okay. So we are still engaging them. We'll continue to engage the necessary authorities and ensure that we are able to fight this. But
there's another school of thought. So let it not be one way. There's another one.
Yeah.
Public institutions, I'll give you the opportunity. Public institutions pay really less than what the private students pay. So if you are asked to pay some small electricity on top of what you pay, what's the big deal?
You say small electricity. Of course, it's not for nothing that they are called public institutions, because they are owned by government, by the citizenry, by the ordinary citizen, and we pay towards the management of such institutions. We pay our taxes. So that's why they are called public. It means it's owned by all of us. Our taxes are supposed to be used to manage that. And you and I know that government's immediate responsibility is to public institutions. Then, of course, you can then talk about the private institutions as well. But the immediate responsibility is to public institutions.
No, what I'm just saying is that the private institutions take care of themselves. They pay their utilities themselves.
Yes.
I mean, if students, and obviously students are paying, but they're not complaining. You pay, if you look at the fees of somebody who goes to the private institution, private tertiary institution, is a lot more than what you pay.
Yeah.
So if you're being asked, if government says that, listen, I can't take this load any longer, I want to share it so that you can pay a little bit of it, what's the big deal? That's all what I'm saying.
Well, increasingly, it appears the cost of public tertiary education is actually going very, very high.
Isn't the cost of living very high these days?
Well, of course, I agree that the cost of living is quite high. But it doesn't mean that we should sit down and fold our arms and not challenge the status quo, especially if we have legitimate grounds to do so. The point I'm trying to make is public institutions. In fact, last year, I personally, University of Education, my final year, I paid 14 million as my fees. So that's public institution.
Wait, hang on. You paid you paid 1,400 Ghana cedis.
Yes.
A year?
A year. No. A year. Yeah. Sorry. We pay yearly, so that's a year. A year. And if you are going to add this 500 or 600 as electricity bill, so you can imagine the amount I'm going to be paying. That's going to hover around 20 million old Ghana cedi there. That's public institution, for God's sake. And our constitution, we seem to be flouting our very constitution. You see, Ghana prides itself as a citadel of democracy in the African continent, and it's not because we are full of beautiful men and nice guys and ladies. It's because of our respect for rule of law, our respect for our democratic dispensation, and to the extent that our constitution says increasingly government must try to make education progressively free. It appears we are not abiding by this, and rather we are trying to make education a privilege rather than a right, so that it's only the rich man's son or daughter that will be able to afford education. I mean, that's a very dangerous trajectory. In fact, that is the feeling out there.
Have you tried to, because see, we know the issues, we know the problems. Have you tried to go to Parliament, for instance? Because that's where I decided to go and see if I could get some answers. Because sometimes when it's difficult really to get responses from the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Education, you want to go to Parliament. After all, the representatives there are our own representatives. It's easy sometimes to get responses from there. What have you done?
Because
there are committees. There's a committee on education, there's one on energy, there's youth and sports. What have you done?
We created the impression that Parliament is such a robust institution that is able to bite match. You and I know what happens in a typical Ghanaian parliamentary setting, where the minority would always have their say, the majority would always have their way. Whatever the government wishes to, at the end of it,
you don't believe
the decision by the executive.
No, you don't believe in our parliament?
Oh, not exactly. I'm just making a factual observation, which, of course, everybody will subscribe to. Because anybody who monitors our parliamentary democracy, you just can't help but come to terms with this reality I'm painting. Okay. That many a time, in any case, this is actually a macrocosm of what happens at the larger scale. Government is reneging on its promise to pay a lot of subvention. In fact, there is a particular issue that we have raised. We have been talking about that for quite some time, and we don't seem to get dividend. That's a get fund. Get fund.
Hang on for me. Just hang on, okay. Because you've made very huge. Because you say these are factual observations. And you think that a lot of people would agree with you on that.
That our parliament is unable to check.
No, but just hang on. Let's see if we can find some few answers for you. Wow. My guest decided, okay, no, let me just go easy on him. I'm sure he's here. So I'll be back and try and find some answers on this particular issue. Stay with me. I've just still got a bit of time here on my banner.